So as much as violence isn't the answer, maybe not everything's violent outside, or maybe not everything's bad. Maybe sometimes what we're getting on the internet is designed to make us think things that'll make us respond a certain way.
Welcome to another episode of the Olive Roots podcast. I'm your host, Chosi Ayub. Today, we have a social worker, and her name is Daniela Stemp. Hey, Daniela.
Hi,
How's it going?
it's really great. How are you?
I'm good, man. Just Friday, so try to figure out what I want to do this weekend. How about you?
Yeah, I am still winding down from the week, so
Yeah, a lot of work this week.
yeah, I have a lot of stuff going on.
Oh man, I understand. Well, Daniela, thank you for taking the time to join my podcast. The first portion of this podcast will be your identity. I would love for you to share your identity with my audience. Pretty much talk about where did you grow up? How did you grow up? What's your ethnic background? Were you raised in another country? Did you move around in the States? So just give me the whole shebang and the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm really excited to talk about myself here. I'm from Ohio. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, kind of outside, like in the inner city. Um, I've lived there all my life. My mom was born in Germany. My dad was born here. It's very interesting. It's my favorite thing to talk about. But I grew up with my mom. I was the youngest of three. I am the youngest of three. My oldest is 54. My other sister's 42, and I'm going to be 35 in a few weeks. So we have a big age gap. And my mom had me pretty late. She was in her 30s, late 30s. And she was born in the 50s. So I have decades of good music instilled into me. My mom comes from a large family in Germany, and when she was growing up, she was in the military. My grandfather is in the military, and that's how he met my grandmother in Germany. And they had my mom and 7 other kids. And when he retired here in Dayton. So I grew up by the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and that's where I grew up. And like I said, my dad and my mom were never really together. He's about 10 years younger than my mom, so he was born in the 60s. I grew up, I spent a lot of time alone, like I do now. That's one thing that has always been about me as a kid. Outside, there was a lot of times that I would just be out by myself, by the train tracks, not a lot of supervision. And back in those days, you could buy cigarettes for your parents with just a note. And my dad is very unique. I'm his only child. He actually told my mom he couldn't have children when they met. They didn't know each other very long, I don't think. And she ended up pregnant. And then, anyway, so my dad, he was always different, and he abused substances like alcohol mostly. He's a very hard worker. So growing up, and this will make sense later, we talked on the phone a lot, and he had kidnapped me. I had set him up to kidnap me. And he thought, so he did go to jail and spend time in jail for that. So our relationship was strained, but my mom raised me. She got married for a second time when I was about 8. And I had some stability in my life then. My dad came out of jail, and that he was like a really good friend. Like, he didn't have a lot of boundaries, any rules. He drank a lot, but he never hit me, told me no. He let me smoke cigarettes if I asked, "Can I smoke your cigarette?" He just didn't have a lot of parenting skills, because where he grew up, he was born in 64, but his dad was born in 1909. So the ancestry is like a little confusing, and it's changed a bit because I followed that, but I'll get to that. So his dad was an alcoholic. My mom comes from a very military family, very, privileged, more privileged than my dad. And yeah, I spent time, I was really good at school for a while. And then my mom got divorced again. Her husband had cheated on her, and she fell into substance abuse. And so I kind of didn't have a lot of care. I was taking care of myself a little bit. I got made fun of a lot. I got bullied a bit. And eventually I stopped caring about, the things, grades, and the things that made my mom happy, which is like cleaning my room. And, as kids, we build a belief system. Our families tell us things about ourselves that are maybe good or bad. And I heard a lot of both. And you build a belief about yourself. And when I lost that, I lost the belief. So my sister, she was moving out because she was older, 7 years older. So during that time, my mom was spending time out of the house, and there were situations that left me vulnerable to assault by older kids that maybe she was friends with or were neighborhood kids. So then I started using drugs and alcohol, and I was in jail for like stealing cars, suspended for buying drugs. That was when like they started putting cameras in schools. So my dad moved across the street. He would buy me alcohol and my friends, and that's just kind of how I grew up for a while. And my mom got married. I moved away in high school, and it was not a good time. And I kind of just barely made it. I didn't have any goals. I just, a lot of drug and alcohol abuse. But I did graduate, of course, because I do have this people pleaser in me, or I did, with wanting to make my parents proud. And that's a hard journey that I am always grappling with, why and what. And so my grandfather's from Ohio. I mean, from Lorraine, but I guess England. My mom's from Germany. My dad his ancestry is interesting, because if you go back, and his side of the family has always been the side that has pulled me or shaped me, I could say, because my grandmother was 20 years younger than him. She had 3 kids, and she couldn't really protect them, it seemed. I don't know. They were abused. There's stories from the neighborhood. My dad was very racist, is very racist, but I love that he and I have a connection that is like, I know him and I know why and who he is, because we share a genetic feature called autism, and I've just never stopped looking. So in his ancestry, there's been women on a boat from Mexico, or I can think of one, and it's changed when I over time looked at it, but the census always shows names change, or maybe race, ethnicity change. It's not very honest, so that's interesting to me. And I feel like my life has brought me to where I am now, where I live, even to like who was buried on this ground, like the first people here. I feel like my dad, and I don't know, but I can read him so well. I feel as though he has a lot of hate for who he is because of his skin and who he thought he should be. I don't know. It's very interesting how my ancestors have moved me where I am. But then I had a recent update in my DNA that has been perplexing me, and I'm trying to process around how to go about answers and what have you. Um, Obviously, I have German, and I also have Ashkenazi Jew, which I'm not familiar. That's never showed up. It's something that is new, and the reason why it has intrigued me is because I go to the doctor, and when you fill out online your registration, it asked me that recently. So I'm like, why are we asking me? And then I'm like, this hasn't been a common thing. So I'm always in this circle of going back in life to things and patterns of who I am and where I come from, because I'm not like my family on my mom's side.
Mm. Wow, that's a lot to unpack. So, sounds like a very rough childhood with try to find your identity between the substance abuse and where your mom comes from, where your dad comes from. So your mom is German and your dad is American. I mean, what is his ethnic background?
Um, he's just white.
So he's white. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's Caucasian. So okay, so your mom is German and so your parents are white. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And you found out you had Ashkenazi Jew, which is interesting because being a Jew is a religion. So
I
it's weird.
know.
It's weird that you find that there is that religion in your blood. And I think um, because that's a whole different topic, but because those people are not Semitic and they have no connection to my land, Palestine,
Hmm.
they try to use that term Jew to say, to claim Judea. But a religion would not show up in your DNA. So it's interesting that they're also manipulating DNA results, which is kind of wild. But before we get to that conversation, you said Ohio most of your life.
Yeah. Yes, all of my life except for 2 to 3 years I lived in upstate New York.
Okay. And did you ever learn German? Does your mom speak German or not really?
She used to. I tried to teach myself German in fifth grade after my uncle died,
Hmm.
but that's about it. And I don't speak German.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun language to learn. I have my best friend back home. His name is Sinan, and his brother is Labib. They were half Palestinian, half German. So they spoke Arabic and German and English. So it was fun getting to learn some German from them. Okay, so that's a little bit about your identity. And tell me about the social worker. What kind of social working do you do?
I do it all. I've always been a social worker. That's who I am. So, what I do now is I work with kids with behavioral and mental health needs. I work for, I guess, a Medicaid program that supports those kiddos in unique ways that help keep them safe at home, at school, in the community. And yeah, but I started social working when I got a dad. So I've been doing a lot of social working because I started my career, however, in children's services doing investigations for abuse and neglect. So I floated around a few different places. I did investigations. I also did some like adoption and foster care. And what I loved about that was the family trees and doing the genealogies. And I did adult protective services, which I also love. I loved just because I don't know. I built a lot of good relationships, and I feel like I help families in the way that I was able to until it became too much. Because these systems are just all colonized and they don't work. Interestingly enough, I've now worked in all the systems about that I was involved with as a kid to see how and why and what. I also worked in some halfway houses or one halfway house, and my last job prior to this one, it was a juvenile prison. So that was very eye opening and taught me a lot. I'm on a lifelong journey of learning who I am and through my careers.
So it sounds like from your previous experience, it made you want to work with children that pretty much might be experiencing what you experience and how you can help them.
Yes, but deeper because I'm my dad's child, and his life and his childhood. There's not a lot that's changed since those times. So yes, I saw me in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I figured. You probably every time you see one of those children going through that, it's kind of like a reflection. So you're like, I have to do something, right?
A little bit. I've been in therapy for a long time, and I've decolonized it a lot to where I've healed my inner child. And sometimes I grapple with like the gifts I actually have, how they don't fit into a box or a system, and I could do more for kids outside of it. And now that I've healed that inner child, I think I'm in the wrong career.
Mhm. I see what you're saying. Okay. Okay. Is it being a social worker in Ohio, according to the law, can it be difficult and restraining?
Um, it can be. So I don't do like I'm not tied to a social work license or ethics, but yes, for me, because I do ethics and morals for me are different than what the system sees as. There's our rules, codes, and regulations. So for me, I struggle with, you know, the language they use to, because it's all in a way to manipulate an outcome or, you know what I mean? I don't know how to explain that, but it
No,
is.
I understand. I understand. They have their own way of try to solve the issue that seems like it never gets resolved because they're not really trying to help. It's all about money and abuse, abusing people to make money out of them, pretty much. That's my understanding. I could be wrong, but
No, you're right. The system and the laws and a lot of it was created with white people in mind, protecting white people, white children. And I don't mean that in a division. I mean that in the times that these laws and these institutions were been created or destroyed, even, it's not been inclusive to what we are, who we are now as people. And
yeah, it
there's
was.
a lot of bias and racism in the things we do every day. And
Yeah,
that's where I struggle with going along with it.
yeah, it was pretty much protecting the people that that created it, and it was protecting them. That makes sense. Yeah, but we're in a different time, and there's a lot of different ethnicities and backgrounds of people here. So if we have to be called the United States of America, then the people have to be united. You know. Okay, let's move on to the next portion. Let's talk about your faith journey. How was your faith growing up religiously? No faith? Did you have any journey until today with God, or how is that to you? Give me your story.
My mom grew up Catholic, but growing up, we didn't engage in religion. Um, However, I had a neighbor I would go to church with sometimes. I struggled with, I guess, looking back, feeling like it was real. I felt like it was a thing I was doing for acceptance. And actually, my neighbor who I used to go to church with when I was like 11 or 12, her older brother raped me. And so eventually, the indoctrination of teaching about abstinence and shame around sexuality and protection and things like they teach those things instead of how to report or how to, I guess, keep yourself safe. I don't know. Anyway, so my mom would be seeking religion and when her life was bad, and it actually created some trauma because when I wasn't, like, I was doing cheerleading and things and she was never interested, and she would expect me to choose what I was doing or what she wanted me to do over what I was doing. So the impression I got as a young girl, 11, 12, is that, this is a harmful thing for me. But it's also like the reality of life everywhere. Like in school with your peers, it's, but I was never really engaged in faith growing up. Until I tried to get sober the first time, and I was baptized. And I wanted acceptance from my family. So I did circle back around 2015 and come back to faith by the time Syria and things were going on there. I started questioning my family, like, are we reading about the same Jesus? Like, are they not refugees? These are horrible things you're saying. And what I can't process the difference, because what I see you do and what I hear you say aren't consistent. And it kind of created a divide with my family because obviously. So then I started asking about Ethiopian Bibles and different missing Bibles. And my sister said, no, we only read King James Version. And people who know me know that when I hear that, I'm going to read everything but the King James. So then I started decolonizing a bit more and more and more. And it was just like a serious spiritual like enlightenment. I was drinking spring water. I like no fluoride water at all. And I stopped eating sugar, carrageenan, and soy, a bunch of things for like 30 days. And then at my body, I just was doing fruit fast and eventually plant-based. And I was in a really good place at that time. So over time, I just started getting more in tune with myself. Yoga, I'm in my yoga training certificate process, but that's more just for things I can do for free for the community. But I have been involved in that spiritually, and I guess finding myself and like why I believe what I believe, who told me to believe it, why and what and how to research things. When we research both sides, we should be researching both sides, and then finding out who is paying for the research, who's funding the test, like all those things. And I guess I became unbearable to people, my family, my friends. I quit drinking, but everybody around me, I guess they would have been fine had I just not questioned things. Or so I did, and I read different books. And I went to college and I did study like religion and whatever they had to say about that. But that's never been good enough for me. I've always needed more. So with my religion now, I don't have religion. I just live how I live. I have an understanding of why I'm here and how I've been brought here and who is God and what is my purpose. I mean, I can't tell you all of that. I can just tell you that the relationship I have is, I try to listen to people and hear what they say. You should read this to understand that. And it is important to understand, the things that I grew up with, like 9/11, all that propaganda, like that's been 15 years of just not trusting the things and people around me. How are these adults going to care for my kids when they've lied? Which was also interesting because like I said, I lived at the Air Force Base. And so everybody was leaving school except me because my mom couldn't leave work. But anyway, so I had to understand more about different religions because discernment is different than judgment. And I don't know where I got that spirit in me. Maybe it's, I'm glad people believe things that comfort them and bring them peace. I have my own, but I can't say it's one thing or another.
Yeah, see, when I was young, I always believed in God, but I turned my back on God when I was 17 because I lost an older sister in a car accident. And when that happened, I was so mad at God because he took my sister. And I said, I don't need you, God, right? And as soon as you turn away from God, the enemy welcomes you and he ruins your life. And he did ruin my life. And 5 years ago, I had an encounter with Jesus Christ in person. And I knew exactly who he was when that happened. And it happened at the lowest place of my life. And he came and he just took me out of the mess that I was in. And he said, follow me. And since that day, for the past 5 years, even though in the beginning there was signs and he was knocking on the door, but I was still kind of like, nah, nah. And then he pretty much appeared to me in a way that I couldn't ignore it. And then he broke me down to build me back in faith. And since then, I've been a follower of him. And, you know, Jesus is all about love, you know, that's the ultimate definition of love is Jesus Christ, right? And he loves everyone. And he wants to see us loving people like he loves us. And that is his commandment, which is the hardest thing to do, is to love people that do you wrong or oppress you or manipulate you or abuse you or rape you or kill your family, right? And that is something as man and woman we struggle with, that kind of love. It's easy to love someone who loves you back, but it's hard to love someone who doesn't love you back or hates you. But he wants us to love them anyways, which is probably the biggest struggle as a follower of Christ that you go through. But have you read more into the Bible on who Jesus Christ is and what do you think about him?
Yeah, like I said, when I kind of had an issue with my family of, I believe what you're saying and I read it. I think that I live, and I know people say this, and I don't like to sound boastful, but I do live like Jesus because I, I, I don't know there, and I don't like to brag on myself, but I've been the person who needs food or shelter, but also I give a lot of that, and for nothing. There's a lot of things, like I said, I don't judge people. I use discernment. Are they safe? Can they harm me? Or but there's not a person. I work every day with people that I wouldn't help. And so when I think of the type of people I help and I love, like, honest to God, love them, their rawness, their humanness, I feel that is who Jesus is. And that is his story. And his stories to be told are in our daily interactions and how we are with one another, despite everything, despite, you know, in the fact that other religions talk about who he is. Um, I don't see it out in the world. I don't. I see him in people and interactions and things. It's not a thing I go to and that's you know I've never been left with nothing from giving or following the example of Jesus Christ. I've never been left. There's been times I had no money, I had no hope, I had nothing, but I've never been left that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's always there and he's alive, man. And he will never abandon you. We might abandon him, but he will never abandon us, you know? So tell me about what did Gaza, the situation in Gaza in 2023, what did that do to you? How much awareness did you have about Palestine before that event took place and before the genocide? Tell me a little bit about your connection and your understanding and where you are today with all of that.
So I started being aware of Gaza, not Gaza necessarily. It was Syria for me. That was the event that triggered I guess my memory in one way, because my parent, or my mom rather, kept a Bible, and I remember it was old and I liked the way it felt and smelled. But in their back the back there was a map, and it showed Palestine. And when I was young, I was probably about 4 or 5. I used to spend a lot of time alone looking at books. I was like, I like that name. That word looks pretty. I don't know what it was. So I had that. And then going back to 2015, or, fast forward, I knew about Gaza. And then I started questioning, well, it's the strip. And I would hear things, but there were actually attacks in 2017, I think, or at some point. But anyway, so back to 2015, I started reading into. I was getting in a lot of trouble on Facebook for saying things like Zionist, and I was in a Facebook group called Illuminati versus Anti-Illuminati, and it was like a huge Facebook group. It had like 1 million followers, and I was reading a lot about Zionism and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and how they kind of developed an education system and how they, just getting into that a lot. So I met my best friend Manal in 2018, and like the lowest points of our lives, like God does, brought us together. And she's from Palestine and Nablus, and she came over here when she was 17. And I learned so much, and we had a connection already because my mind was open to, I already had cut off a lot of the things I buy because, like I said, everything is owned by Zionists. I mean, toothpaste, mouthwash, food, Pepsi, all those things. So you start looking into who is funding it and where is it coming from. So then I learned about palm oil, and then it was a lot of information though, so I'm not able to process it at once. But my connection with Manal was she educated me a lot. And so in 2021, she would tell me about the events going on. There was another attack, and I don't remember where. My memory is not great, but so I've been invested in that way, and I've known about Zionism in my own regard as to how they own all the things, like all the networks. And this has been 10 years ago. So it's been 10 years of just being outcasted and like buying more expensive things. And I can't do it all the time. Like I can't control every single thing I buy, but I realize I can control my life and my values and beliefs and morals with what I choose to purchase, what I choose to buy. So maybe I'm spending $8 for bread, but I know what they're doing, at least what they say they're doing, because a lot of people say they're doing things and they're not. So flash forward to 2023. I was actually telling a friend about this yesterday. My friend Manal, who I was telling you about, she and I were watching the information and, crying. And I kind of realized, because her mom had her kids and she's like, you can't just lay around and cry. So it gave me another perspective about, how other Palestinians maybe feel about, it was just a lot. And I've been very vocal. I mean, and even sometimes I get a little harsh on people, because they talk about their dollars this and their dollars that, but they really have no clue where their dollars go and have been going. Sometimes I have to take a lot of breaks because I feel like I get so frustrated because the information's there, and I think people should think how I think or feel how I feel. Like we want to protect children and we want to, teach them about things, but we've done it in a colonizer's view. And now I realize how far we are. And I just feel very out of place. So that's been my involvement, and trying to step back and keep getting the information and, using it in the right way so people can learn instead of like being so mad at them because why don't you care?
It's interesting that you found that Bible when you were young and you saw the map and you're like, oh, I like that name. And then about 10 years ago, plus the Syria destruction, the attack on Syria, because this is not the first time that Syria gets bombed. And I remember like 10, 12 years ago when they decimated Syria, you know, like till this day, there is that part in Syria. If you go with a drone, it looks like Gaza, right? And that's what that Zionist entity does. And south of Lebanon looks like that. They're actually bombing Lebanon right now, and they're still bombing Gaza. And I'm always thinking, like, who's next? Egypt, Jordan, So for the Greater Israel Project, right? I'm like, okay, so Iraq, you're really gonna do it to Saudi Arabia too? Like, how far are you willing to go? And it just seems like they're willing to go all the way because in their mind they're unstoppable, right? But God will stop them when when He needs to stop them, right? But the enemy has power to devour, and he's looking for someone to devour, and he has the freedom to devour. And I think that entity is a perfect representation, that Zionist state, of Satan, right? They have his star on their flag. They claim that they're original people from the Bible. They're not. They created a fake language and call it the ancient Hebrew. It's not. They claim they're Semites. They're not. I mean, everything. I could keep going on and on and on. And then their supremacy, the Zionism, is them thinking they're more superior than us by calling us Goyim, Gentiles, right? So they believe they're more superior than us. And I don't see any other movement or religion other than white supremacy, which is not a religion. I don't see anything to that extent of Zionism, you know? And the person who are dealing with that day in and day out are Palestinians. And we don't have guns, we don't have weapons. We just have slingshots and rocks and stones. And somebody like the resistance, Hamas, has old weapons or weapons that refurbished, fighting an army that is well equipped with flip flops and AK 47s and digging tunnels and try to do what they can. Yet they're the terrorists, according to the Western world, which does not make sense. Actually, that Zionist state is the terrorist. It started in terrorism, right? And it's interesting that you met Manal. Manal, that was her name? Yeah, Manal from Nablus. So she's from the West Bank. So she probably gave you the whole history. As Palestinians, we have to be well versatile with education, history, religion, languages, just to say, hello, we are human beings and we exist. We didn't come from nowhere else. We are from here. Our grandparents are from here. Our great grandparents are from here. Our DNA proves it. Yet they try to erase our identity and at the same time steal it, right? They even use our language and sometimes, especially with the bad words, the cussing, they use our language because theirs don't hit as good. You know what I mean?
Well, no, it's broken German and
Yeah,
Yiddish.
yeah, it's that Yiddish. It's that Yiddish, and they stole some from Aramaic and Arabic, and they just did this and Latin, and they're like, ta-da! We have Hebrew, while they can't pronounce those letters. Like they can't say Hamas, they say Hamas. They can't say the letter R, Israel. They say Israel. You know,
Yeah.
they can't say Gaza. They say Aza. They can't say Arab. They say Ah. Like everything is just wild. And I speak their language, so I know that if we speak it how we speak it, they know that we're Palestinians because we pronounce all the letters, because they don't. So now I have to talk like them if I don't want them to find out that I'm Palestinian when I'm in the west side of the country, occupied Palestine, West Jerusalem. So I have to speak like them to imitate them so I don't get stopped and abused, you know? So, resistance wise, what do you think, something you're still resisting in life? And did you conquer it? Are you still resisting it? What kind of struggles you have today?
Mm, I don't don't know about struggles. I'm resisting. I don't know. Like,
It can be on a micro level or a macro level, and it can be not related to you, whatever you want to discuss.
yeah,
Should we resist as human beings?
yes, I think that that's required of, if you look at history, and I've been reading a lot of books about America and how this came to be. And there are literal blueprints of how people have resisted, at least here, for hundreds of years. And like you said, the erasure makes it not real. So it's like, I'm resisting, I'm trying very hard to find everybody to say, why don't we just sit at home and resist paying the bills and resist this system and resist the things that are always failing. They failed my parents personally, they failed me in other ways personally, they failed my own children in different ways personally, because the system is not designed for all of us. I'm resisting the urge to just tell all the stuff, but I've done that. So sometimes I get tired, and that's a resistance, because I don't know how to, engage people and to care, but other than to just stop doing the things that are normal and do the things that are needed. Like, I'm just tired of oh, we don't have food. Well, we go to the pantries. Well, what about the people who have too much pride and they will buy the food, but go without clothes and having them washed? The system is failed because the people are failed. The system fails, the people haven't. And the people think they have. And I fear that they've given up, or they don't know what they have even. I don't know, because I know where I've prepared for. I feel very calm in uncertainty, because that's my life. But I don't know.
Sounds like the people don't know that they have the power.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah, they lost the confidence and they lost the community factor too. I noticed that everybody's self-absorbent, selfish, and it's all about me, right? Instead of let's build a community. And I think we are supposed to build communities with like-minded people. Doesn't have to be the same race and the same religion, whatever. Just a community of solid people that can trust each other, love each other, and help each other. And I think that's how the world is supposed to be. But apparently, there's a lot of a-holes and bad people in this world that good people have to kind of create their own circle within this corrupted system and the bad people. So you're like getting it from both sides because there's a bad system and there's people that are bad too, that want to drain you and steal and crime and kill and whatever. There's bad people. And then you have a system that is bad that kind of like wants those bad people to be strong so they can kind of oppress the good people, and it's like a cycle. That's colonialism in a in a short description. But how can the people wake up? Like, what is it going to take for the people, especially we're here in the United States of America? This country has a lot of potential to house and help a lot of people, not just here, around the world, especially financially. But we like to support wars instead of feed the hungry. What is it going to take for the people to stop this government regime, regardless, Democrat, Republican, it's two wings on the same dragon, and the dragon is Satan? How can people stand against the system and say enough is enough? Because if you protest, maybe things will change, maybe not. If you become violent, then you become like the bad people. So you're like, where is the happy medium? Like, what do you think people are supposed to do?
Well, I think they need to heal. And I mean that in a gentle way, as in, we take a lot of abuse because it's normalized, again, to the colonizer mindset. They give us a box and we fit it and we get the things in a reward, and it's supposed to be. But if you don't, and some people don't see they're being abused, and sometimes it takes giving space for someone else to have experiences, and that's hard to do. It's hard to hear that we've been lied to. Maybe our relatives, our ancestors weren't the best people. It takes honesty. It takes stepping outside of yourself and reading or listening and hearing the experiences of others. White people have whiteness. People who worship whiteness have not had to fight for things in the way that Black, brown, other people have had to when it comes to measuring up here. And it's sad because there's been so much, I don't want to say brainwashing, but wrong information, false truths about what are we supposed to do, and women, and what are they supposed to do. And it takes a lot of like really wanting to understand how and why. Like when people feel violated, they start to explore things. But I fear that people who are a little hurt inside, who feel violated, blame others, and they want someone to be responsible for what they're feeling. And if it's supposed to be the daddy government who takes care and does all these things, and who, we build these relationships with, pseudo relationships, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to lie, George Bush was funny, but knowing what I know now, when we build that humanness with others, we trust an entity to take care of us, to be there. And until we step outside of that, and when people, I think, are vulnerable or harmed, and they start getting humanness from others, they start giving it to others. So as much as violence isn't the answer, maybe not everything's violent outside, or maybe not everything's bad. Maybe sometimes what we're getting on the internet is designed to make us think things that'll make us respond a certain way. And yeah, it's a really hard balance of what is made up in my head and what is going on outside, because what is real and what is fake. We have AI, we have confirmation bias. When we believe something and we keep seeing and getting confirmation that that's real, I think I speak for myself a lot. So when I'm saying things, it's really always my experience. But myself, I didn't know who I was for so long, because I was told that girls or women do this or that, or even being bisexual or anything. Like, it was always fine with my mom, but we don't do that in our family. So there's a lot of things that they hold shame for who they are and who they've been told to be. And when you break away from that and you identify how you want to and heal the way you want to, it sometimes isolates you from people who've accepted you when you went along with the things. So when you say, look at this thing I learned, or maybe this isn't right, or maybe I voted because of this, and people, when that cognitive dissonance, it's hard. There's been, Facebook will tell you these memories, like, I made a post like a long time ago, years, I don't see color, because that's what you would think, but then you read more into that, because you have to listen to the experiences of the people who are oppressed to understand how your intentions aren't just good enough. And I think that if people value what other people have to say about their life and their experiences, we can overcome.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, everybody is walking around, most people are walking around with unhealed trauma and terrible experiences in life. I don't think any human being has not been through hard times. This is life. Life is tough, life is hard, and you have to persevere and push forward. Some people's life are better than others, but even the people that you might look online and see, oh, they're living their best life and they have the money, man, they can be like the most depressed people in the world, and on the line of just taking their life out, out of this planet. But you said it perfectly. heal. You have to start with yourself, right? You have to heal yourself. And that is a very hard thing to do for some people, to identify that they need healing and actually take actions towards that. Because some people, well, many people neglect themselves. And it's kind of like my cup is half full or empty, and I'm trying to fill other people's cups. And I'm like, but man, like you got to fill your cup first so you can fill other people's cups. Otherwise, like, what are you filling them with? It's all superficial. It's not really, you're not really doing anything. You're not doing anything positive. So I like that you said healing. So I guess we have to heal
A little bit.
so we can have a healed community, huh?
Or at least a collectively one that's committed to the best of oneself and another. And that comes with nobody's perfect. Conversations are hard, and sometimes we take those little conversations as criticisms, but we need to, because nothing's perfect. And we like a little drama, but not too much.
I I know the women like the drama.
Little bickering.
Little bickering, little healthy bickering.
Yeah,
Well,
like to be accountable.
yeah, be accountable. Yeah, it's not all criticism, and sometimes criticism helps when it's given with love, and compassion, not harsh and judgmental, right?
Right. There has to be a connection.
It has to be a connection. Well, Daniela, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure learning a little bit about yourself and just sharing with us about all the stuff that you went through and experienced. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with me and the audience. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful night and hopefully we will chat again.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I
Of
appreciate it.
course. Peace and love. All right, guys, you heard it. We have to heal. I have more healing to do. So you should ask yourself, do you have some healing to do? Your family, your friends, maybe your dog or your cat. But either way, keep moving forward. You will persevere. Until next time, God bless you. Peace.